Okay, perfect. All right. So I know I asked you to kind of go into it and schedule this podcast, but did did you gather why I'm doing this?
Um, Not 100%, but since when you look at the name of your podcast, sometimes when you get into what you're doing or why you're doing it, you might miss out on information that might be available.
This is very true. So what I wanted like a bird's eye view of it. Podcast is to impact aspiring investors in their journey to really. It's meant to remove limiting beliefs and helping people. One thing we've realized is everybody's got a reason or no. By seeing different people and first deal stories, it removes can or shouldn't invest. Um, and we're really going to go into is for your very first deal, how you got it and how you closed it. The overall picture is to create a community to show people know where you're from or what you've done. You can find getting closure first.
Makes sense.
And be real, with your first deal. I mean, raw is good.
We don't have to tell him that.
We don't have to. We don't have to. Some people, man, they got their teeth kicked in on their first deal.
Yes.
Some people deal was great.
Yes.
So we want the real deal, and I know that we'll get that from you. That's why we asked you to be on here.
Yes. So the outline is we're going to talk about who you are. Then we're going to take some framework of how you got and closed your first deal. Points that I want to touch on, and it's really just like question answer. At the very end, we want to discuss one major limiting belief or overcome, and of course, how you help other people. That's pretty much the peanut butter and jelly of it.
Go.
All right. So you want me to do the intro? All right, everybody, what's popping? What's going on? This is
and Leon Thompson,
straight from Birmingham, Alabama. Welcome to the My First Deal Story podcast, where we are talking to the world as they go into details about their real estate deal, how they found it, how they got it. And the point of this whole thing is to do what? It's to get you to limiting beliefs, to let you know that no matter who you are, where you've done, you too can get your first deal done. All right, so welcome. We've got Miss Chapman in the building. This guy right here, really amazing. He hits you with the raw real at the same time. He's got some amazing things going on. Get into that. Welcome, Mr. Aaron. Tell me where you from. You can do that part.
Well, you know who I am, Aaron Chapman, right? So where I'm from, I'm originally New Mexico, and then my dad was a miner when I was there to Wyoming, and then place to place around Arizona. Stayed here for a while, got into on a cattle ranch in Utah. So I spent my high school, and from there I went back to Wyoming to work on a. Then the partnership went bad with so they sold off the ranch. He went back to Arizona, and here I am in Arizona, and that's the life I would stay at since 2000. So it's 1995 in Arizona. So that's where we're at.
I love it. When we met you at the REI Coaches event, of course, you guys, look, that was an event in itself. But more importantly, when we heard, because Aaron shared a lot with us about where he's from and what he's doing now. And of course, he's a family man, and I think that's important to some people say, well, I got children, I can't do it, or I got a spouse, or they are supportive. So I just, I want to point that out, that man and family is extremely important to you, and you don't over it.
100%. Well, that right not be 100% true statement. Right? I've had the opportunity to event like we just stand in these rooms. These people have their presentations. They're going to do the first slide of the presentation says, their why, right? And they show a picture of their family. Bullshit. I'm going to call bullshit on that being your why, because if that was the case, you would be not here with us. Right? So everybody has it for what they do when they do it. And I believe the why there can be more. Now, yes, I do want to take care of my family. Yes, I want to be sure that have all the necessities of life, but there's the necessities of the Creature Conference. So let's just be honest, right? I mean, we love the Creature Conference. And so because of that, we go out there and we're late on rent, and we're trying to get all these deals in and trying to make sometimes at the expense of our family. But what I do, and what I've involved is once I started under the investments I was doing now, I'm not perfect. I'm Forrest Gumping my way best I can, is just like the next guy. But it's a building, getting to know people, digging into their head and figuring out how they did one thing that you're looking at right now, and then sharing information with my family. So now I bring them all together on a very regular basis. If I'm going to invest in something, I have my kids get to look at it. We'll do Zoom calls with the people offering the investment, ask questions, which was really cool back when the youngest and the oldest was 18. Well,
also,
the deal. they had to learn how to dumb it down to the extent 10-year-old would understand something, right?
That's so good.
So it's helping them, and like, wow, how do you talk to a 10-year-old? I'm like, well, you figure, right? And so they had to really work at that, but it made me better as a presenter and made my kids more intelligent as it was one asking questions as we did more and more deals. And now we have this family, I guess it's a board, if you will, where we get together, we have a Zoom chat, we look at the paperwork and we vote and we decide. Now, I want a unanimous vote before we do something, but if we don't have a unanimous, and I have the swing vote, I can do whatever the hell I want. Let's be honest, it's courtesy. we want my money, I vote however, but I don't swing that authority around in the wrong way, right?
Yeah.
My kids know I have this, but I truly want their response. I want to get the details as to why they think they're thinking the way they are, and then we work it out. And the reason I want a unanimous vote is if we got one dissenting vote and it goes sideways, then what do you have, right? You have one person saying, see, and I was right. And you have the other ones justifying why they did it. And then they're coming up with justification for the wrong reasons as to why we did something, rather than just saying, well, something we messed up.
Right.
If they mess up right now, the stakes are low. It's my money, right? Now, the thing is their future. And so I've also required that my kids, when they're to get started, they have to do the infinite banking strategy, especially when they get married. And so if they don't have that, them and their spouse, they're written out of my will. They do not get a damn thing.
I believe you.
Yeah. And because they need to take care of themselves. If they know how to set up the 10% of their income being saved, they have the infinite banking strategy built out. They have the life insurance policy on them and their spouse. So if something happens to their spouse, my child's taken care of. They're not coming back to dad, right? So I'm setting them up with a foundation of how to live their lives properly.
Yes.
And here's what's cool. If something happens and I just completely obliterate my what wealth I have for being an idiot, they're set up with great principles. They've got a great foundation. But if I continue to grow it with their input and then they've done the same themselves, there will come a time where they step into the seat where they inherit all of that and they learn how to continue to grow it. And they need to teach the next generation to do the same, because if they don't, it will be obliterated by generation 3.
That is brilliant.
Yes, it is.
That's brilliant, because that's something I've heard with a lot of entrepreneurs and professionals is, I'm doing this so I can leave it to my family, and their family's not involved. And so what happens when they, they're departed and they leave this earth, right?
They don't know how to run it.
The family's like, well, shoot, sale, everything's for sale. What's your price? And so it's like all for naught. So I love that that's something that we definitely need to implement even better, like with the more structure. So thank you for sharing that. That was so good.
That was a lot, definitely, to learn from and unpack, man. Guys,
we're
gonna have to rewind that and listen to that again, man, because that was awesome.
Yes.
Well, and that's what I like to always do is when I step into a room and start punching everybody in the face right out of the gate, right? And if you can stay in the room long enough, you're gonna get at least 4 or 5 beatings throughout the conversation with the data we've got, because I've been blessed to know so many people and do so many things. And to your point is, so many people, they think legacy is leaving a bunch of money or a bunch of houses to your kid. That is a legacy. It's a legacy of creating a bunch of well-funded assholes to go around and do stupid stuff with money they never earned. And I can't have that. I'm not going to turn that loose on the world. I need to not only have what I have, just kick my ass for years to do, but I need to take those who are receiving that, and then know what I've had to go through to get there, and continue to feel the same grind that it is to build it, and then pass it on to the next one, the next one, the next one. And we're using the infinite banking strategy, utilizing those whole life policies. There's no reason why that won't perpetuate in significant manner. I think when people fail to use that system and that process, or don't even know about it, that one, they need to investigate, they need to get to know it, they need to talk to the right people. The guy who I use, he's the shittiest salesman in the world, but the greatest educator on the subject. And that's why I use him. Because you're already sold on it, right? You want to know that this is the right thing. And believe me, in my opinion, it's the holy grail as far as foundations to build your wealth.
Amazing.
Thank you for dropping it like it's hot right out the gate. That's
so
awesome.
So I know you did not start at where you're at now.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your first deal and how that kind of educated you. Tell us about how you got it. How did you find the deal? How did you get the deal? And how did you close the deal?
And where you were in that process, like lifestyle, family, all of that good stuff.
Okay. So, I got into this industry where I'm at now, which is financing people's real estate, right? It's like your regular bank doing loans for single family homes, people buying homes to live in. But I started targeting the real estate investor. Is where my business is now. I've been doing this since 1997. But my first real deal, I mean, it was, you buy your first home, right? You go to the builder, you pick all the stuff out, you buy what you can afford and qualify for. And then I happen to be driving down the road and I'm headed to the house. We've lived there for a couple of years and I stumbled into a place where we just moved out of. We actually bought the house next door and expanded our position, right? Now it was on acreage, right? And I grew up cattle ranching, right? So this living in a neighborhood stuff sucked. So we had some decent gap between us and neighbors. There's still a neighborhood. I like having some distance. Well, I drove by a place that has 1.5 acre lot. So this one was for sale. So I made a deal on it again to move in. So it was an easy deal to make, but then I turned the house we had into a rental. I was not a landlord. I sucked as a landlord. I had people rotating in and out of that. And I was having a difficult time making that deal work. And that was really the first one I had as an investment property, is one that I just turned into a rental that I lived in. And I could keep people in it, just barely paying the bill. At the time, Arizona had higher prices versus really low rents. Now, it's completely flipped around now where rents are high, but prices are still going up. And I don't know that's quite catching up the way it should. But at that point, I had the guy who I bought this house from, the one that I just moved out of. Yeah. He had an opportunity come along where he had presented a deal with me of this builder building these houses on 5 acres down in a lot further south. Okay. So I'm like, who's going to buy it way out here? But the price was ridiculously cheap. So I bought it. I split that 5 acres up into 3 different lots. And I had the one house on 1.6 acres. And then I had another guy come to me that I met at a party. He's usually the life of the party. And I was the most obnoxious guy other than him. So between the two of us, we were kind of battling for who was the most obnoxious. And it was frustrating him because he never loses. And here he's got this young guy. I was like 20, I think I was 26 years old. And he's in his mid to late 30s. And he was getting frustrated. But somehow that sparked a second conversation. He told me about what he had stumbled into, utilizing land trust to be able to sell properties. And it's a big convoluted process. But I'm like, hey, I just closed on this property. Let's try it. So we tried it and it was awesome. And then I did that with the other house that I was renting out and it was awesome. So that's kind of where they started, was just listening to other people, somebody giving me an opportunity and I took advantage of it. And what many people fail to do is they think that, man, I got to go hunt this stuff down and figure this stuff out on my own. No, it was the relationships that made it happen. These two guys that knew me, that gave me an opportunity. Then I need to step through the door. I could have easily said no. I wanted to try it. Now, at that point, those were big wins for me. Then I got another win and another win. Next thing you know, I'm like, dude, I'm the freaking man. There ain't nothing I can't do that ain't going to just kick ass. So I started doing stuff. And I started buying things because the market was going up fast and things were just kicking ass. And then 2008 happened, right? So the problem of it is I was doing like everybody else. I'm like, I can get a house that's going to go up $50,000 a month, and I can put zero down. And I don't care what the interest rate is because I'm going to be making money when I sell this. Then when the music stopped, I had to hold all that. So it's doing very well. I was making decent 6 figures at the time. I was in my late 20s, early 30s, but the problem is I'd taken on enough leverage that it was literally it was good 6 figures in payments every year. Wow. I was hand to mouth, even though I was making stupid amounts of money because of my bad decisions. Wow. And so, and it was at a time when you weren't getting properties for cash flow. You're getting properties to be able to flip them. That's a stupid market move. Don't ever think that that's what you've got to do. I mean, if you have a flipping business, that's a different deal, right? You're negotiating for way less than value. You know where you can settle that value. But if you're buying at fair market value, saying I'm going to incubate this for 2 months and make 50 grand, you're an idiot. Yeah, that's what we're all doing, right? And so we had a market full of idiots doing this, and then the music stopped, and we got crushed. Now, not only was that happening, but I was ripping down the freeway to clear my head for 3 days because I was doing multiple things at the time, and I needed to get some space to myself. Jumped on the Harley, was going to take August 8th of 2008 and ride for 3 days. I was 15 minutes into that ride, and somebody flipped on a blinker without looking, pushed me to another car. I went flipping at 80 plus miles an hour, shattered both my legs, collapsed lung, bunch of ribs busted, and I laid on the pavement in Arizona, August 8th at 12:24 in the afternoon. So you can imagine the damage to my skin, massive concussion, had a lot of memory loss, a lot of problems came from that. So I came back, when I went on that ride, and I went that morning, I left my house that morning, 6'1", 190 pounds, 7% body fat, in the best shape of my life. I could drop or run a marathon anytime I wanted. I can go climbing anytime I wanted. I was worth on paper about $3.5 million. A few weeks later, I was wheeled out of a hospital, still 6'1". I didn't lose any height, even though I busted a whole bunch of crap up, but I was 156 pounds.
Wow.
And I was my net worth went from on paper, 3.5 million to a negative 1.5 million.
Wow.
$4 million. Wow. That was a $5 million swing with also a massive loss in body weight. So you can imagine a 6'1". I was basically a skeleton with skin wrapped around it. And my memory only lasted 3 minutes. So I had to go to try and crawl back from all those things and then figure, okay, how am I going to work with this market? How am I going to get back to where I was going? And even have the capable. Was that a flash in the pan situation that I took advantage of and then just blew up on me? And now I'm pretty much cooked. I got to just experience what the great life was for a short window of time. And I'm back destined to be that guy who basically makes his money with his back, which is how my family always did. And going back into the industry after that, it was 100% just out of pure, I guess, anger, if you will. I got to get back to where I was. I was like a blunt instrument, just hitting a wall constantly. I was going to break through that. It took a lot of years. But now where I sit, we've got real estate in 5 states. I have partnerships in multiple different things. I think there's the doors that I have 8 or 10 doors personally, but 200 plus doors in partnerships. And, in partnership, it has to be right, man. Partnerships can literally destroy you if you don't do it the correct way.
Oh my, and you know what? That's a whole nother topic. And thank you. Every time I hear you share your story, I'm just like, man. And I hope listeners hear this. So my first deal story, yes, it does talk about your very first real estate deal, but I feel like with you, Aaron, you've got this, it's unique because you did it 2 times. So you did it once, and it doesn't sound like you paid a coach and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't sound like you bought a course. You were looking for your primary house. You got your primary house and ended up turning into an investment property. So you ended up becoming like a landlord, like an investor that way. And then life kind of slapped you in the face in a really drastic way. And you had to start all the way over again. But it seems like you repeated like the relationships, right? When you got back into this thing.
100% relationships got me in. In fact, the relationships is what got me back doing business to begin with. So my mom was a realtor, still is. And there's another realtor by the name of Carolyn Irby. And they both, all the other people, they either went somewhere else because you'd call me and 3 minutes later, I forgot the conversation.
Wow.
Or they got out of the industry and altogether. Both of those people, a mother's love is a mother's love. And she's gonna definitely try and help me out. But she's also, you screw up, it's like, you're done. I'm going to go to the credit union, right? So I'm done working with you. Then she'll chase you around with her shoes still. I'm 47 years old and I'll still take a beating with a shoe from my mama. So you got her and Carolyn both, they realized where I was at. And so what they would do is they call me to give me a referral. And then they call me back a few minutes later and say, do you write that down? I said, write what down? It's like, okay, get your pad, get your pen, and let's do this. And they helped me train my brain back, and where I didn't go get therapy for this. I'd literally just carried a pad and pencil around, or pad and pen, and I'd write stuff down and I'd check it off. And there was plenty of people that got called from me 3 minutes after I hung up with them, say, hey, is Aaron Chapman a security with such and such lending company? I've got your number here from Carolyn Irby. And it's like, we just talked, dude. It's like, okay, what did we talk about? Because I didn't write it down. Right. So that's kind of the situation I had to do till I trained my brain to come back to where I needed to be. And again, relationships made it happen. Every single thing I've ever done, everything I've ever accomplished had to do with a relationship with somebody else. And what I tell everybody is I don't give a damn what you do with your life and how wealthy you become. You leave this world with 2 things, relationships and experience. You can't have one without the other. And if you count either one of them, you don't leave with anything. You literally exit this life a completely busted individual with nothing to show for it.
Wow. That's so good. That and the emphasis on the memory portion, because people got great memories and still got excuses why they can't make it work. You know, there's so many people that have so many ups. They got so many pluses, right? Answer me this. When between the time frame of you looking for your house and actually closing the deal, how long did that time frame take? Or how long was that?
Looking for my house and closing the deal. Let me see here. If it was the very first one I bought, it took months because it was a new build, right?
Yes.
When it came to finding the second one that I wanted to buy, as I'm just driving down that road and I saw the sign, that was about 30 to 35 days before I closed that one.
Wow, driving.
Yeah, I drove by, I saw a sign, and I just turned. I'm like, and I usually don't go down that road. It was weird. I don't go down that particular street. Now I go down that street every day because that's what I do.
Yeah.
But I'm literally driving down, I'm cruising, and I look off to my left, and there's a sign sitting on the road. So I just turned onto that street, and there's this lot. It is really just a house sitting on a massive dirt lot. I'm like, so I called my wife, said, what do you think? She goes, let's check it out. Wow. And then we made the deal, and it was more than what I thought we could make happen and we could afford at the time. But I'm like, we're going to make this happen. And we just pulled the trigger because this is the life that I want to live. And then the house behind me. Now, what's interesting is the house we live in now. What they did was back in this used to be farmland. They cut it up into these long 2.5 acre pieces that were like 150 foot wide by like 600 or 700 feet. Now, I don't have the exact measurements. I probably should if I'm going to talk about it. Well, what they did is they cut them in half. So right down the middle, you had a house up front and then a house in the back. We bought the one up front, which was the original house on that lot when they split these up back in the 80s. Then it had a long driveway on the left side that had an easement to the back where the people behind it were. And they had a house with a guest house. And we got to be very good friends with them. Awesome people. He was a SWAT cop. He had a couple kids. They were great people. Well, things happened in his life medically and things went sideways. He's since passed, but the family put this house up for sale. I'm like, I'm buying it. Right. So people have been on my damn driveway for years. I'm taking over the driveway now. So I bought that. And then we went August of this last year. And we've been on I'm now finishing the final grading. There's a tractor outside my window right now. I'm getting excited to see this happening. But we have literally cut this thing down to where we built the house that we want with it, gut it completely down to the studs, new wiring, new plumbing, new everything. And now we have this 2.5 acres, plus we have acreage in other states. And it's been a great run. And now you just understand what deal makes sense and what doesn't because you've been in it. You know, you've got it. There's this old saying, good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment. You don't learn
that
until
is so good.
Mistake, right? That's where having a coach or having a mentor or having a relationship at the very beginning works well because you can play off of the mistakes that they made, provided they want to share that. And that's one of the things I do with my business all the time. It's like, guys, I work with real estate investors all the time. You know, the average person in my industry, I'm what they call a licensed loan originator. There's 300,000 people in the US doing this job. The average guy does 2 to 3 transactions a month. That's mean they're going to draw from 24 to 36 transactions a year to guide you through the process. Now, I do in excess of 1,500 over this last 12 months, which is 7 every working day that I close. That's a lot of investors I talk to. That's a lot of people I get to see the decisions they make. I get to see where they screw it up. I get to see where they win. So when these new investors, even seasoned investors, face a question or decision they've never faced before, they have to do something they've never ventured down before, they can contact me and I can share with them stories. I don't ever tell you do this or do this. I tell you the story, again, just like your deal story here. So you get the experience, right? Yeah. You get to make a judgment call based upon experience of somebody else. And you're making that decision based on practical data, not speculation and theory. And if you're going into it without a coach, without a mentor, a relationship of any sort, you're going to go 100% off speculation and theory, not off of any practical data. So if you can't find practical data on what you're going into, don't do the deal, period.
That is amazing. I couldn't.
This show is sponsored by HiveMind CRM. It is more than just a CRM. It is a real estate and business mastermind that comes with an all-in-one CRM. You can have unlimited websites and users. You can call, text, RVM, and email all in one user interface. And you can set up custom automations for any type and multiple businesses. 65% of companies start using a CRM system within the first 5 years of business. Once implemented, the Hive Mind will save you on marketing, give you more time, and make more money. One of our users had his first $100,000 month using our system in June. We want to see you automate and accelerate your business. Text us at 210-972-1842 for future meetings, and of course to get our $1 course on how to make more than 6 figures on one land deal. You can schedule your free demo today at hivemindcrm.io
to guide you through the process. Now, I do in excess of 1,500 over this last 12 months, which is 7 every working day that I close. That's a lot of investors I talk to. That's a lot of people I get to see the decisions they make. I get to see where they screw it up. I get to see where they win. So when these new investors, even seasoned investors, face a question or decision they've never faced before, they have to do something they've never ventured down before, or they can contact me. And I can share with them stories. I don't ever tell you do this or do this. I tell you the story, again, just like your deal story here. So you get the experience, right? Yeah. You get to make a judgment call based upon experience of somebody else. And you're making that decision based on practical data, not speculation and theory. And if you're going into it without a coach, without a mentor, a relationship of any sort, you're going to go 100% off speculation and theory, not off of any practical data. So if you can't find practical data on what you're going into, don't do the deal. Period.
That is amazing. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, so much wisdom in what you're saying. And guess what, guys? If you're out there trying to look for your first deal, that's what Brittany and I here for. We're here to help you find your first deal. Yeah. And Aaron, he's dropping so many nuggets that I wish I knew when I started my real estate journey. Man, I could have saved myself so much time and so much headache and so much pain if I had a guy like him in my corner.
Yeah, let's talk about that specifically. Aaron, what's one major limiting belief that you overcame or that you even overcome daily to keep pushing, not only for yourself and your family, but also to help other people?
I'd say the biggest limiting belief in business for me was that I had to look like everybody else, I had to talk like everybody else, and I had to think like everybody else.
Wow.
So when you're looking at me, do I look like basically a real estate investment finance expert?
No, and for the audience that are just listening to this from a podcast,
the easiest thing to do is just go to my website, aaronchapman.com. Right?
I was going to say, Aaron, can you describe yourself, please?
I'm gonna let all of you think, okay, I was listening to this guy, so I'm gonna let you imagine I want you to imagine the suit, the blonde hair parted on the left, and my thin rim metal glasses. I want you to think of all that as you're putting that face to here, and then go to my website. If you can't
drop it for him. Give me
website. Aaron Chapman in Google, and you'll find the one lender, and you'll see something hopefully different than what you're picturing.
And we'll make sure that y'all have it in the show notes too, because I want you to be humored. Like this is where judgments and misunderstanding can really do a dance.
What I found, some of the smartest people in business go into it intentionally to be underestimated, and that's what I've successfully done. You guys were with me for a couple days before you heard me speak, right? Yes. And so. Right. Yes. And so, in fact, a couple of people I've talked to after that say, let me just say, I'm very, very guilty of judging a book by its cover, because seeing me wandering around there, I didn't talk to some of these folks until after I had my opportunity to speak. And that's how it's worked at every event that I've ever been in. And if people didn't know who I was already, I didn't get to know them till I was done. And then I couldn't go to the bathroom without a train.
Yeah.
Right. So. And it was a great event in the sense it was small, just a few people there. When I've been speaking to ones with like 400 or 500, it does make it to where I have a very, very late night with not a lot of time to myself.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, let's do this because I don't want things to run terribly long, and I want to respect your time, Aaron. But I also want people to be able to. Of course, we'll drop the website, but specifically, you alluded to it earlier with how you help investors. But if you could really reiterate, um, for your ideal, how can you help people? Like, what is it that you do to help other people?
So investors, they want to get the best financing they can, right? So if you're looking to get like private money or something like that, I'm not the best help for that. I do have connections I can connect people with, but my thing is I'm helping people that have prepared themselves for this. We do your conventional financing, your 30-year fix, your Fannie Freddie stuff that all your banks do. The difference is all the banks don't do this for investors because it's too damn hard. And it's also, in their opinion, too dang risky. I have proven with extreme pain over the last 15 years of really focusing on this, that this is the best type of business any banking entity can do. And I have literally been audited. I have got the crap kicked out of me. I've been threatened to get fired by companies who's like, you're doing too many investor loans. This is not our platform. But then once they have the time to witness and say, whoa, wait a minute, these are the best paying clients we have. They pay the longest. They pay the most on time. This is the best business we can make. I'm saying that's what I've been telling you guys, right? So it's so frustrating. Now they get it. They finally get it, right? And that's why we're doing hundreds of transactions a month, because they're backing me up to do that. But so I want to work with the people, and who I best help is ones who have prepared themselves with their credit and their income and their savings to be prepared to go out there and buy and qualify for these kind of loans. Right. So then you can get that good 30-year fixed money. And some people will think, and this is where I really dig in and help them, because they're going into this most of the time from a consumer's mindset. How do I get the cheapest price with the cheapest interest rate and the cheapest costs? And they put them at the mercy of all these people that will literally take advantage of them, suckering them in with a so-called cheap price. And then you get all the other things they stack on top, and you're at the closing table and you're stuck. Right. That's not how we operate. But we also want to help people understand rates and all those things don't matter to the real estate investor. We live in a highly inflationary environment, do we not?
Yes.
What is the rate of inflation right now? Do you guys know? And it will scare the hell out of you.
A lot.
You're right. It is a lot. In fact, it just came back out to over 6% from what the Fed says. That's what the Fed is saying, right? They usually won't admit to nothing, right? But they're admitting to it being over 6%. Just from last month, the claim came out that it went up 0.9%. That is 1% over 1 month period, right? The claim is we're going to keep with monetary policy interest rate, inflation down below 2%. It's not happening, right? And when you look at what they use, you guys are familiar with the term the CPI?
Yeah, a little bit. You helped us with that too.
Yeah, so people will hear that, the Consumer Price Index, also the PCE, the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index, which are two indexes that the Federal Reserve uses to measure inflation. But it's only indexes that they created what goes into the index. They don't factor in food costs, energy costs, and segments of housing. That is what people spend to live, right? We need three things to live: food, water, shelter. We also need air, but California is the only one that knows how to tax air. That's not anything you and I got to worry about. But what ends up happening here, you take those things out, you get the Fed's number of that 6.2 or 6.3% right now. You add it back in, it's over 14% right now. So this is alarming, but let's think about this from the real estate investor's perspective. We can't stop inflation, right?
Right.
Yeah, this is going to be a global thing that has to be worked on in as far as the economy. Have to open things back up. We got to get all these containers full of these ships full of containers unloaded and trucked out, and we got to get materials back in the store. That's what's going to change. That's what's going to change the economy.
Yeah.
But in that meantime, it's still going to stay high. Inflation's always been much higher than Fed's ever said. Well, if our interest rates where they're at are way lower than the rate of inflation. So what people need to wrap their head around is when you fix your costs for 30 years, let's say you bought a $100,000 property and financed for $80,000, you'll pay $405 a month for the next 30 years. But you get to raise rents on that, right? You get to increase your income, but the lender doesn't get to raise the payment. They have to accept $405 a month every month for the next 30 years. And when you recalculate that based upon today's inflation, you're paying less than $70,000 back in actual dollar value over 30 years. You borrowed 80, you paid 65 in interest, but the actual value of what you gave them back is less than 70,000. You didn't even give them back what you borrowed. So you leverage high, you leverage long, you pay off slow, but you only do it in an environment that you can keep reasonably rented and that you can raise rents on. If you can't get that, you don't close the deal. But if you can get that, believe me, everything we get for you is a gift because you're never paying back the money. And you just continue to increase yours with your tenant living in it. That's what I want to help people wrap their head around. There will come a time we can talk about this. Anybody who wants to talk to me, I've got an app out there. I can get you guys the information for that, the QJO investment tool, which is the quit jerking off investment tool, because that's all you guys are doing.
Yes.
Work, right? So you look at that, it looks like a gorilla with a braided beard on it. You pull that up on your app store, and then we'll reach out and talk, and I can show you how to use it and show how inflation is eroding that dollar for the next 30 years on your transaction within the app.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. We will also make sure that's included in the show notes. The value, I mean, this has been insane. And again, stuff we wish we knew. But more importantly, I love that you've reached a level of success, and you weren't, like you said, you didn't look like everybody else, you didn't sound like everybody else, but you still found your lane, and you operate very strongly in it, and nobody does it like you. So thank you for taking your time to come onto the show, talk about your first deal, talk about where you're from, talk about how you're helping people. Guys, take this opportunity. Check out Aaron's website. Like again, it's in the show notes. Check out the QJ.
And say the easy way.
I was trying not to do that.
QuitJerkingOff.com. Go check that one out too.
The show is sponsored by The List Guys. Do you need more leads in your local or virtual market? 1 in 10 small businesses don't invest in any kind of marketing. The List Guys have over 35 plus list types to choose from, and you can mix and match any list or criteria. We also use the skip trace list and provide up to 7 numbers and email addresses. Every list you purchase will be scrubbed against previous purchases. The List Guys are here to save you time. Contact the List Guys today at www.onelistguys.com. That's www.1listguys.com.
That's a lot easier to say and remember too, by the way.
Yep.
By far.
You remember the QJO over the Aaron Chapman real quick, right?
Well, that's the thing. Then my name.